A talk show that cuts to the truth, no matter how painful it might be, and no BS. Citizen Smith, Citizen Smith, Citizen Smith.
Here is a man who would not take it anymore. A man who stood up against the scum, the dogs, the filth. Here is someone who stood up.
It's time for Citizen Smith.
Welcome to Citizen Smith here on Wednesday, September 15th. We got audio on the television here. Hold on, folks. We're working a lot of angles today, a lot of stuff going on technically. We're going to be taking phone calls in the show today for the first time.
Let's hope it works.
Let's hope it works. Call-in format. Now I hear a beeping noise from a phone.
Maybe turn your phone off. I don't know. Try that. That might work.
It's on my phone. I think it's in the other office over there. Anyway, let's talk about, first and foremost, a movie that I watched last night. Before I get into all the politics, we'll be talking about the book Peril by Bob Woodward. Very revealing. But first, I want to talk about the incredible documentary I watched, If I Leave Here Tomorrow, about Leonard Skinner on Netflix. Netflix does the best rock and roll documentaries. They do great documentaries, period, but they also do a great documentary on rock and roll. I got this thing in my ear that is like really irritating.
What? I don't hear anything. You shouldn't have anything. Everything's normal here.
There's like an air conditioning sound. Anyway,
I don't know.
Well, If I Leave Here Tomorrow by about Leonard Skinner's beginning in Jacksonville, Florida, and starts right from the beginning, like they always do with these rock documentaries, all the way through to their demise in the airplane. Which the documentary opens with the audio of the plane crash in Mississippi. That
They had the audio of it? Oh, man.
well, not the plane itself, but the radio announcement that the plane crash occurred, and it was, that's how it opens, and then it goes into the starting the band in the swamp in a little cabin where they put all their music together. Anyway, one of the things though in the movie was so revealing, and just I didn't know this because I was a big Leonard Skinner fan. They started in 1964, but in 71, 72, they started making their name known and forming Southern rock, as it was known. So the band members like Gary Rosington, who played guitar, and of course Ronnie Van Zant, the lead vocalist. Gary Rosington is talking about being in the plane when it crashed and the wings blew off. And he was just going into the detail of the, when they smashed into the trees and landed, how there were people moaning and groaning. One of the doors was on top of him. He had his broken legs, broken pelvis, broken arms. I mean, everybody was a mess. There were 20 people on board or so, and 6 people ended up dying. Of course, 2 members of the band, Ronnie Van Zant and Steve Gaines, who was one of the great guitarists in the group.
Yeah. Damn.
So every time you put your mic on, that's when I hear this really loud sound in my ear. But the details he went into, because I didn't know. I thought like all the people on the plane died. There you go. That fan was it. Thank you.
I didn't know it was on.
Yeah,
I can't hear it.
Now the fan's off and I don't hear it. Thank you. So I thought everybody died that was on that plane, but 6 people died, and the others survived, including all the other band members. And they were like, Ronnie Van Zant was sitting right in front of us, and he died. Or Steve Gaines, I think he said, was sitting next to him or just in front of him, and he died, and
Damn.
he lived. And he was like, I don't know how that happened. And he was going into the detail of, there were people bloodied, and then some people showed up. One of the band members, I think it was Burns, the drummer. I hope I got it right, Bob Burns. Or anyway, had just enough energy to go find some help, and wanders off into the swamp jungle there, and finds people to come back and try to help him out of the plane. And to hear this story for the first time was just riveting. And the whole thing that these guys went through to start a band, and what they went through to they were real brawlers. There was crazy drinking, and as you know, in these bands. And fascinating documentary. You got to watch it. Leonard Skinner, one of the best rock documentaries I've ever watched. Gets my greatest rating, highest rating, Full Bag of Popcorn with Butter on Netflix. 2018, this came out, so I just caught up with it. And if you're a Leonard Skinner fan or just a fan of rock, and this is one of the more tragic stories, because after Ronnie Van Zant, the singer, died, and Steve Gaines, that was it. That was the end of the band. And they did reunions after that. Anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. I just came across it last night. It's one of those documentaries like, whoa, a Leonard Skinner documentary. So with that said, I just want to mention briefly before we get into politics, one of the great comedians, somebody I really enjoyed, passed away, Norm Macdonald, yesterday, 61 years of age. All the comedians loved him. Of course, SNL, he played a role in that on 1994 to 98. He was in the Weekend Update chair as the anchor, where he really made his name. But I had no idea Norm Macdonald, for 9 years, was battling cancer. And he passed away in Los Angeles yesterday at 61 years of age. What a great comedian, smart guy. Was released after he was coming down on O.J. Simpson too much in the show. And one of the heads of the television network said, that's it, because he was friends with O.J. He says, I don't want him on the show anymore. And Don Ohlmeyer, the president of NBC, was pretty much the guy who said, get him out of there. I don't want him on the show anymore. And Norm Macdonald, just a funny guy, always had funny things, a funny take on things, very intelligent comedian.
The best was when he'd do the Jeopardy and he'd play Burt Reynolds.
Yeah.
And then he'd pop up. He'd always write the name. The name would always be like Turd Ferguson or something like that.
That was one of the best segments on
Chewing
that
the bubble
show
gum
ever. And a great impersonation. Sometimes people forget his good impersonations. He was spot on with Burt Reynolds. Well, I'd like to end with with this joke I just read. This is in the obit in New York Times, but they're writing, among his famous jokes is the one he told on The Tonight Show with Conan O'Brien. I feel it's good to end on a comic note. In 2009, about a moth that goes to a podiatrist after a setup that rambles on for a few minutes, in which the moth pours out various emotional troubles. The podiatrist asks the insect why it came to a podiatrist rather than a psychiatrist. And Mr. McDonald's punchline, and then the moth said, because the light was on.
That's good. That's good. Rest in peace, Norm.
Yeah.
Man. He's my favorite SNL anchor, too. News anchor.
Right.
He's great.
Did you know he had cancer? I didn't know he had a 9-year battle going on.
Yeah, I had no idea. Way to keep it private.
He looked, when you saw him the last few years, he looked very heavy in the face, and that the chemo must have been making him, gain that weight and that puffiness. He looked unhealthy. I didn't know what was going on with him. All right, let's get into yesterday I was talking about the recall vote that was taking place with Gavin Newsom, the Democratic governor of California, with 46 candidates on the ballot. I said that he was going to win because there's no way 46 candidates are going to spread out the vote and let him win an election. And that held true. And not only did he win, he won with over 64% of the vote. 66%, I think, was the total. The Democrats came out in force. So this Republican bid to recall him failed miserably. It was a waste of time for the voters, for the state. Spent who knows how much money for this stupid election. And the leading vote getter for the Republicans was conservative talk show host Gary Elder, who was the one who led this recall vote. Can you imagine that guy being the governor, conservative talk show host? Thank God Governor Newsom won. And now the Republicans have to be on alert for the midterm election coming up in 2022 because it's not looking good for them the way they lost this one. They look like a bunch of buffoons.
We got Pete Lee calling in.
Oh, so our first call on the call-in line, which is 503-744-7022, 503-744-7022. We are moving to a call-in format for the show because we are live 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, weekdays, Monday through Friday here at Citizen Smith and TalkCast PDX. So let's see if this works.
Let's see if Pete's there. Pete, are you there?
Bluetooth.
I'm definitely
there. He is.
Are any of us here?
How are you, Pete? He was just there.
Doing all right.
Okay.
How are you?
Good. Is there any delay going on? We're working the system for the first time.
I think there's a little delay between me and this phone bridge and YouTube, but that's expected.
So Pete's a very tech guy, notices these things. So Pete, what do you think of this recall vote? Pretty much a statement that the Democrats are in a state that's still very strong.
I would agree with that. I think my perspective on it is that, no matter, what elections we win, we need to keep working toward addressing the needs and concerns of everyday people.
Pete's the vice chairman of the Democratic Committee of Oregon, so of course he favors Democrats. You mentioned some statistics you were sending me about the recall vote. Want to revisit those?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Please share it. You're the one that I'm asking you for.
Yeah. I found it curious that as of an hour or two ago, that 2/3 of the people that voted that voted to recall Governor Newsom, that they had not actually, apparently did not actually select someone to replace him. Now, someone could vote against recalling the governor and fill out a candidate. So I think it's safe to assume that most people who voted to recall the governor also selected a candidate, or what is selected a candidate. It's just, I was surprised that so many did not.
They didn't vote at all, you're saying?
That's from what I can tell.
What do you think of recalls?
Because one of the instructions.
What do you think of recalls, votes? Do you think the recall system is broken, that this is a fiasco of the democratic process?
From my understanding of it, and feel free to double check this, my best understanding is that in this particular instance, if 50% plus one vote was to recall Governor Newsom, and literally of all the 47 candidates, if 46 of them had 0 votes, and only one of those folks got literally a single vote, I believe called a plurality, that person would have won. I think that mechanism is fundamentally undemocratic.
Where the hell did this recall vote start? How did this ever find its way into the political process? I understand that sometimes we might have a dictator or something. We have to get him out, but then you can just impeach. Can you not impeach a governor or like a president?
I believe impeachment is a process, technically speaking, that's done by legislatures. It's not citizen-led.
So it's a safety net, though. Well, we have the recall. I guess it can happen. California tried it. Thank God it failed. Thank God we still have a governor that actually might know what he's doing and not some talk show host who thinks he knows what he's doing because he knows how to talk politics. I want to bring to your attention, Pete, since I've got you on the line and you are very savvy with politics, there's a very interesting election about to take place in Boston for a mayoral candidate because the former mayor took a job with the presidency, Flynn, and we've usually had an Irish or Italian representative in Boston. It's very much neighborhood-oriented election. Now we had 4 candidates. It's come down to 2. 2 of the candidates who were black in the bid for the seat did not make it to the final general election vote. But Michelle Wu, an Asian American who's on the city council, 36 years old, from Chicago originally, went to the University Harvard, and represents Asian community or an Asian for the first time in the election. Taiwanese immigrants, her parents. So interesting. She's got a very interesting history, but she's trying to run on a platform of certain political positions for taking care of the problems that are facing the city, like the police violence or lack of proper representation and housing problems there with affordable housing, but not really going after the Asian vote because she doesn't think she might have it. She can't play that card. She's taking on a woman, Kim Janey, another city councilor. I'm not Kim Janey. Let me back up. I don't know if I got her name properly right here, but her name is Saibi George is her last name, and she's from Tunisian and Polish ancestry. Heritage is very big in Boston politics. Irish, Italian, as I said, usually prevailed in the mayoral elections over the decades in Boston. Now, for the first time, that won't be the case as we await the winner of these 2 ladies, Amisa Saibi George, also a city council member. She was the second place finisher in the primary, and she's from the Boston neighborhood of Dorchester. As I mentioned, immigrant parents of Tunisian and Polish ancestry. So she's got the local angle. A little older, a little more mature. For that reason, in Boston, I will give the nod to her. She represents the blue-collar industrial port of Dorchester. And some people are saying the newer generation of voters, 26 to 33, say that are new to the city, filling out high-tech jobs, medicine, biotechnology, education, could sway this vote in favor of Ms. Wu. What do you think?
I don't know very much about these candidates from what I've seen. They look pretty great. One thing I would note quickly is that, from my understanding of history, just in very general terms across the U.S., there is not a ton of participation by Asian Americans in politics as elected officials.
Hey, Pete, are you on speakerphone? Because it's kind of hard to hear you. You're kind of fading in and out.
Yeah, sorry about that. Hopefully it's a little bit better.
You're in your Tesla, obviously using the speakerphone there.
I got my AirPods on. Do I sound a little better now?
Okay, go ahead.
One thing I am happy to see, I don't know tons about either the cancer running. I've heard they're all pretty great in general terms. It's just really heartening to see an Asian American who's running. Historically speaking, across the U.S., we have a lot of Asian folks running. I think there's some cultural history with Asian folks not wanting to, stand out and get criticized or get into trouble. Just a lot of history of keeping our heads down and working. So it's really heartening to see someone who's Asian running.
I figured you'd have a take on that, given your Asian background, Korean American. So some people are disheartened that a black candidate didn't finally make it into a mayoral election, that it's happened in the South. Why can't it happen in Boston? So that was a little bit of the setback of people of color.
Perhaps. I think one thing that folks should try to wrap their heads around is that, people of color are not monoliths. We're a lot more complicated than that. And, one of our own city council members here in Portland said that just because because someone is a person of color does not mean that they're going to reflect like the priorities of Joanne Hardesty, one of our wonderful African American council members. And that, we need to check the tape, see what their background and record is like, and see what their vision for government is.
Well, the women are starting to take the lead in political roles in America. That's certainly happening, as we've seen in Oregon. And now we're seeing in the Boston mayoral race. So all these young college grads who were very civic-minded in college and ran for political positions in their college platforms are now emerging in America as leaders of this country. This, in and of itself, is quite a groundbreaking time in history in this country.
It absolutely is. I'm glad you mentioned emerging. I got to give a shout out to Emerge Oregon, which is our preeminent, something organized by the Democratic Party and our coalition to train women to run and win elections. So you got to emerge right. And my hat's off to Emerge Oregon and all the folks who support them.
Very good. Well, we'll end on that plug. Thanks you for joining me, Pete Lee, our first caller on our call-in show, Citizen Smith, 503-744-7022. Thanks, Pete.
Thank you, Ken.
All right, let's switch gears. We're going to talk about President Trump and this riveting new book that's coming out by Bob Woodward and Robert Costa, former reporters of the Washington Post. Bob Woodward, very well known for past books. This book that's coming out called Peril is really raising people's radars as to the seriousness of Donald Trump's last few months in office, including what was revealed in the book as a possible missile strike against China that was concerned for China so much that two generals got on the phone to talk. General Li Zhuocheng of China and General Mark Milley of America. Mark Milley reaches out to the general in China to tell him, don't worry about a missile strike of some kind, because they were concerned Trump was going to launch something to keep his presidency intact by starting a war. And the Chinese were legitimately concerned that some kind of missile strike, who knows, blowing up one of those artificial islands in the South China Sea where there are missile silos, could have been a target. That's what I'm thinking. Or they didn't mention specifically what they were concerned for. But this dialogue was going on, and this General Milley was intervening to make sure that there wasn't any mishaps starting a world war. Because he was concerned about General Trump's mental state, as were many other people around him, after he lost the election. This is like straight out of Dr. Strangelove, the movie that was pretty much about crazy leaders. Joining me is Dave Dahl, formerly of Dave's Killer Bread, and prime investor in this platform that we're involved in, who is also a very strong Trump reporter and has some very strong opinions about this idea of China's concerns with America for a military strike in Trump's final few months in office. From American intelligence, this was shared in the book, An International Crisis Averted. Dave Dahl, what do you think of that?
I have never heard more bullshit in my fucking life. General Milley is probably the biggest bullshitter that there ever existed. Look, yes, I'm a Trump supporter, and Trump wasn't. If he was thinking about a missile strike, he would have followed his advisors. He's not that dumb. Okay, this is ridiculous. I'm sorry.
You're then disallowing the general's statements when he said in the book,
I don't like that guy.
Well, first of all, General Milley said it as this is taken from documentations from the time he was in the
I would love to see that.
General Milley concluded that the situation was, quote, grave, and General Lee, quote, remained unusually rattled, the book reports. So the general in China They were legitimately paranoid and concerned about a missile strike.
Yeah, well, China is, as obviously, very, we can count on China's word, anything they say that matters, right? I don't think so. And General Milley is a woke general. So, honestly, I don't trust anything he says either. So, but I actually, Trump is far from perfect, but he has more common sense than all those guys put together because he listens to people. He listens to people who know what the fuck they're doing.
Well, he didn't seem to be listening from what the book states here. Mr. Trump, General Milley concluded, and I'm using a New York
Milley,
article for this.
where you go again?
Well, I'm just telling you what he says in this book. Did not want a war, but might order the. He said he concluded that Trump did not want a war, but might order the launch of some sort of military strike that would set off a chain reaction and lead to war. Quote, I continually reminded him, Trump, General Milley is quoted as saying, quote, depending on where and what you strike, you could find yourself at war. He's telling Trump this.
Why would Trump want war? He's never been about war. It's so crazy to throw down on Trump for something that he's not even known for. It's crazy. Why would he do that?
Because they were saying he was mentally unstable, was acting erratically after the election that he lost,
He was
and that he was going to start some sort of military action to. Yeah, I mean, how if he already lost the election, what was there to be gained? But they didn't. I don't know. They were saying he was acting crazy, and
of course,
Nancy Pelosi said. She said, I can, well, what do you mean illegal or crazy? She asked a question about possible actions by the president.
Nancy Pelosi, there's a winner. Yes, she is a winner because she's a dishonest and very corrupt individual. So, yes, anything she says, yeah, you can count on her.
And General Milley said, I can give you my word to Pelosi. The best I can do is give you my word, and I am going to prevent anything like that in the United States military from happening. So he was being the buffer between something a president might have authorized, but he was saying there's a chain of command, and it goes through me as well, and it's not going to happen.
All right, yeah, General Milley, yeah, he's I love that guy so much. He is so trustworthy. Him and his freaking white rage. I mean, come on, man. Let's get off. I don't like talking about race, but because it's bullshit. But General Milley is I really don't care what he says. It's like you know what I mean. I don't really.
I got this other point as to why he would do the military strike. Mike Pence, who was also concerned about the president's actions or possible actions, said that he told the president he was convinced that Mr. Pence could throw out. The president was convinced that Mike Pence, the vice president, could throw out the election results in order to keep himself in power. If he was involved in a war.
Jesus Christ! Look, I'm sure Pence and Trump, they did have a falling out at the end, and there's reasons for that because Pence didn't go along with Trump on Trump's refusal to accept the results of the election, but I'm not going to get into the details of the election at this point, but I can tell you that Trump was never going to not leave office. It was did you see him, and this insurrection, so-called insurrection, had nothing to do with Trump. Okay?
Well, fair enough. I knew we'd get a different take on it from your position. So you're disallowing the general's concerns. I'm going to buy you. I'm going to buy you the book and I'll mail it to you, unless you want to buy it yourself. But I think you
Well,
want to read it.
I
Called
don't read
Peril.
paper. I listen to audible books, yeah, but I don't read paper. So
All right. Well, maybe you'll want to get this book, though, right? It might make
yeah, I'll check it out because it'll piss me off. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna hate it. I'll tell you what. I'm gonna send you a book,
Yeah.
Audible, and or paper, whichever you prefer. And if I read yours, you got to read mine.
Okay. Deal. What's the book you're going to send me?
It's called American Marxism. American Marxism by Levin, Mark Levin. I need to liquefy my throat. You hear me?
Yeah.
American Marxism by Mark Levin.
Okay.
And I mean, it is chock full of history. Okay, and I'd be interested on your take on it, and I'll read if you think I should read that book, or
I think you should read Peril by Bob
okay,
Woodward and
I will do it. I will do it.
and then you'll have maybe a different take on the final few months of a president going insane.
I don't think so. I really don't think so.
All right, Dave. Dave Dahl joining me today. Always love to get his take. A view from the right and a view from the left. Wow. I'll talk to you later, Dave.
All right, later.
Yeah. Good talk. Good, interesting stuff. Phone lines were open. Talk show has begun here at TalkCast PDX. We'll continue to keep the phone lines open as we change the format to a call-in format, as it should be on every talk show here at TalkCast PDX. I'm Citizen Smith. Have a great day.